Welcome everyone. You are listening to and perhaps watching Calling the Audible. I am the driver of the clown car. My name is Peeze Della Reeze. Co-piloting the clown car
I am the clown.
GM Kolethras. How's it going?
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I feel like I literally don't even remember the last time you were in studio.
We can fix that.
It's been a while. We do need to get you in here more often. And of course, producing us as always is Eagle at Master Control. And here to make sure Joey Taylor doesn't get inducted again is Terry Tam sitting in the shadows.
He's not
on camera. I just said it because you're here and I felt weird not introducing you.
Right there.
Welcome everyone. Today we will not talk about any of the games that happened in FPF. So if you played this week, to hell with you. We don't care about you and don't like you. GM, thanks for making the trek out. Has the storm started yet?
No, it has. Well, I don't know. We're in a garage
Based
right
on
now.
what you mean
no,
we're in a high-rise downtown Montreal?
Yes.
Not in the garage.
Not in the garage at all.
Place. I don't know why I would say that place specifically, but we're definitely in a high-rise. GM, you had an article just came out, literally just now before we started this podcast.
Great timing.
About seriously, much like everything we do in FPF, it ran late. Not your fault though. That article is up, and for anyone who is listening, you can tune in and watch. You can read it at flyplusfootball.com. For those of you who don't like reading and come to the podcast, we'll kind of read it to you. Yeah. We'll discuss the topics herein. We've been doing the Hall of Fame inductions for how long?
Since 2011.
Since 2011. That's actually my first season in the league. I remember looking at the name Carmen Palice and saying, "Police, that's a weird last name." So that was he was part of the first class, if I'm not mistaken. Because again, or otherwise the story doesn't make sense.
I think
but in worst case, I'm lying.
I could be wrong, but I think it's Carmen Palice, Kevin Wyeth, Rashdi Ben Abdelkader, Keyshawn Thompson, and Shane Williams.
I remember seeing that name and saying, I don't know how to pronounce that. The name, of course, being Shane Williams.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we call you the FPF historian. So Carmen Palice, Rashdi Ben Abdelkader, Keyshawn Thompson, Kevin Wyeth, and Pat Chenard.
Okay.
So close.
I mean, that's fine. It's close enough. Doesn't matter. Again, it's all on the website. If you're very much interested in fact checking, please feel free to do so.
Shane Williams was the second.
The year after, yeah.
Along with, can you do this twice?
Paula Pierre.
Yep.
Gino DeFazio.
Yep.
Tony Tibet.
Yep.
Nareg Yasayan.
Nope. Close though.
No. Paul Kamel.
Yep. And do you remember the referee and the staff?
Tom Cesari.
Yep.
Darren Basmajan.
That is correct. He's really
so
good
as much as everyone loves to hear lists,
which they can consult themselves on the website.
Let's get into some of the topics.
Darren's picture is fantastic, by the way. Everyone should go check.
Thank you for interrupting me. I really appreciated that. You could have just said that later.
No.
So let's get into some of the topics that you brought up in the article. The topic that, of course, was sparked last season. We mentioned it earlier, as we started the show, when Joey Taylor was inducted. It started the great debate that we've actually been having for years before, and we'll have every year for as long as FPF exists. What I will say, what the debate is that the debate on one side is only guys who have played Division 1 and have excelled at that level can make it to the Hall of Fame. The other side of the debate is, the way I see it personally, is a Hall of Fame is in every sense a museum. And it is, in our case, much like, for example, the Pro Football Hall of Fame or the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I think that's the closest parallel is actually the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's a museum of our history. And our history is not a history of Division 1. It's not a history of Division 2. It's a history of an exponentially growing amount of divisions, which is part of what makes FPF the amazing league that it is.
A representation of its players, right? Not just like a specific subset. And I think that if you're only considering Division 1 or you're only considering Division 2, at a certain point in time, you're going to get guys who are pretty good in Division 1, but nothing better than that. And then
it's not Hall of Skill, it's Hall of Fame.
Where do you put someone who is a Division 1 defender who has maybe either a huge impact in the game, but you don't really see it because the QBs don't tend to throw their way and they have no stats to back it up, or they just don't have stats because they're just an okay player in Division 1. Where do you rank them compared to, say, a triple threat quarterback, receiver, rusher like Seb Thibault in lower divisions? Like, do you want a Division 1 role player, or do you want someone who excels at 3 positions on the field?
And guy who started in a division and moved up. And in the end, we are a recreational league. And sometimes a guy is very talented, but largely wants to play with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see is guys get forced up through a cap system over time. What happens is there's a lock in Division 3 where players can sort of stick around there for a while and play with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Not quarterbacks per se, but let's say like receivers and snappers, defenders, rushers can play in that division because they're not position kept the way quarterbacks are. They can choose to play with their friends for a long time and continue to have great seasons there, and may not be interested in playing in higher divisions. May not be interested. One guy, for example, that I know on our list, which we'll get to later, Justin Blanchard, famously not a guy who enjoys sort of physicality of Division 1. Not a guy, he wants to play with friends. That's why he plays with me as a quarterback. It's not because of my talents, I can tell you that. It's because he wants to play with friends.
And we know from
Why would
having
we
seen
punish
him in
people
other
with-
leagues that he is perfectly capable of playing with more elite teams and with more elite competition. And it's just someone who just chooses not to.
I think this conversation even changes form a little bit now that we have, well, not only co-ed, but a women's division as well, right? So you're not going to necessarily say, well, they need to play Division 1 in order to be eligible. Well, no, you're playing to the best of your abilities against the highest of competition, so why aren't you eligible?
Man, we're going to have a sexist debate at some point, though, right?
It's going to happen.
Where like Vanessa Beery is going to be obviously first ballot,
Yeah.
but just means people like, how can a woman be in the Hall of Fame? And I'm be like, oh.
Because you're asking that question?
Yeah, and then I'm going to vomit a little bit in my mouth. But yeah, at that point, I'll be so old I won't be able to control my own vomit is the point. That's one part of the conversation. Well, first of all, where do you lie with regards to that? I think you're more centrist than I am, but
I'm pretty centrist in that I agree with both sides of the argument. So what I would like to see is, I don't care where someone starts. How do they compare? How do they compare relative to their peers? And do we see a clear progression?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if someone has great stats in their first season in Division 6. If they in their next season in Division D, do they have the same quality stats? Do they go into Division 4 after that? Do we see a clear progression, or are they still elite compared to their peers, even if they're staying in the same division?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just one or two early seasons of greatness and then it kind of flounders as they rise?
So I promise this is the last nomination and Hall of Fame show and the last time in this show I will mention Joey Taylor's name.
Oh,
But
I'll bring him up later. Don't worry.
The reason why I'm bringing it up is the case I saw for him, and a case I think is important to consider for specific situations is I think some people have an impact on the largest percentage of the league, which is divisions 6 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's the largest portion of our teams, and
I would say,
amongst
yeah,
that,
3, 4, 5.
Sorry,
3, 4, 5, because you also get engaged return players.
Yeah. But still, like, just bulk of teams. The most teams are Division 6 and 5, and the most returning teams are Division 5 and 4, 100%. And Division 3 as well. Division 3 actually is a very communal division. We tend to see a lot of the same teams returning season after season to that division. So I will say that the way I saw it with my vote there was that was a player who really benefited. He was a great benefit to a lot of lower division players in terms of teaching a system that was digestible, that was easy for players who weren't necessarily the skill level of some of the most elite players.
Not football players, but flag football players.
Yeah, exactly. And he is, to me, one of the great. And I'm a guy. I have all the benefits of working for FPF for so long, and having played, Division 3, Division B, and so I've met a decent amount of cross section of players where I can send a message to Kevin Wyeth. I send a message to Dan Lazare. Like, I had a conversation last night with Dan Lazare about, hey, I'm really struggling in Division 4. How can I improve? And not everyone has that ability to reach out to these guys. And I also reached out to Joey Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
and he helped me improve. And I know what he did to help so many others improve. And I think that made his candidacy for a lot of people in the community vote, but especially the staff vote, where the bulk of his votes came from. Because when you're staff, you kind of see how players interact, and you see how they're involved, and so on and so forth, and you see their involvement in FPF on a grander scale than just game in and game out. So that was that case. What are your feelings on that type of induction? Someone who's, it's not necessarily the talent level, although I don't want to besmirch his talent and his accomplishment. But someone who was a mentor, teacher, builder, sort of like the way Gino DeFazio was nominated as a builder.
I think Gino DeFazio is absolutely a good way to further that example. I do agree as well in that it's definitely someone who has changed FPF, or at least brought more attention to it. And systems like that have existed throughout FPF's inception. I mentioned to you off air that Joey's system is reminiscent of like the Park X Streets offense, who there may even be some carryover between those two teams, and even that is reminiscent of another Hall of Famer, Paul Kamel, who's now responsible for the you can't throw underhand in the red zone rule, because that was his offense. Paul Kamel had pretty much the first dink and dunk, ugly but working, marching down the field and killing clock. He was one of the first to do that. So, and he's a Hall of Famer as well, and no one really debated his merit or induction into it, because he eventually became a high division player. So I think it's sometimes a case of the higher division players forgetting where they came from at times. If you compete at an elite level for so long, you tend to forget how you also first came into the league.
And also, like, and specifically, like for guys who've been here a long time, they started when there was only two divisions, let's say. So they started in the lower division, which was Division 2. The league has grown. The league has become something else. It is a more accessible league than when it first started. I think, like I said, to me, that type of player is tremendously important for the growth of the league and for what FPF truly is. So the next thing I want to ask you about, GM, when it comes to the topic of, so what I believe is it's important for people to vote differently, to have different criteria. The way I vote is very different from the way you vote.
Yeah,
we've had many, let's call them conversations off air about this.
Enthusiastic conversations.
Absolutely. And I remember some heated conversations I had in the past with especially Division 1 guys, and I said, but guys, if we vote all the same,
what's the point?
We'll have just one guy vote, and we'll have Rob vote, and it's done. But the thing is, because we vote differently, I think it really allows us to paint a portrait of the league. And one thing that, and I know this is going to be blasphemous because it's just the way football has been perceived for so many years, is how heavily do you weigh winning championships?
It's part of the formula for me. I wouldn't discount someone who hasn't won championships.
Like Sean Avram. Sorry, he won championships before Peeze, so it doesn't matter.
He won one at like a winter and a spring.
I know. I like the book Sean, but yes,
11th best quarterback in Division 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of the 10.
I guess this year's more accurate example would be Justin McLean. Justin McLean has 8 individual awards or all-star nominations. Actually, I think it's individual awards and a certain amount of all-star nominations as well, as we wait for Eagle to pull it up. He's only played 10 seasons, so he's theoretically only missed 2 nominations,
which is
to win it, but he has not won any championships. And
what's cool about Justin McLean is he's won awards from
8 and 3
from Division 4 to Division 1. So he's won in large player pools, and he's won against some of the elite players. So he's done both things, right? Yeah. He's won.
He was a standout.
Both are hard.
500 people.
It's hard to do for different reasons. It's hard to compete against the best for sure, and it's hard to stand out in a group of people because you might be competing against someone who might not even be as talented but has more opportunity. He did both, so that's absolutely impressive. Nobody can take that away from him. For me personally, I believe winning championships and winning is a team accomplishment. It's not necessarily representative of a single player. And one thing, for example, that we do a lot because lazy media members in more traditional sports media have done is make the argument, for example, well, Peyton Manning can't win the big one until he wins that, and then they go to the next person who can't win the big one until they win, and then the next person, so on and so forth. For example, Andy Reid was that person, and now it's Kyle Shanahan until Kyle Shanahan wins as a coach, and then it'll be the next person. So it's a flawed argument, especially, and the case is particularly difficult in FPF because we're judging people often in the beginning or middle of their FPF careers, not necessarily after they finish playing.
And there's also who's more deserving to be based on championships than Dan Marino or Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, exactly. You're asking the wrong guy for that, though. My opinion will definitely be biased because Dilfer was handsome.
I've always looked at individual awards as another piece that is very obvious for me as a differentiating factor, but not necessarily in Division 1 and 2, but more in Division 4 and 5, especially if we feel, someone actually, I'll call it, belongs to play in the 4 and 5, even Division 3 arguably, because if you're playing in Division 1, I mean, there's a limited pool of people that are actually in there, right? So if you're constantly winning Receiver of the Year, it's still a great accomplishment, but your pool of people you're competing against is much smaller than if you're doing it in
you weren't
Division 4
listening.
and 5.
You weren't listening to the previous segment, huh?
No, but I mean, and we get back to this and everything. Championships seems to be the category that a lot of people look at for this, but really, in terms of competing against individuals, that's really much more a way of differentiating you against a team roster.
I think it's a statistical accomplishment is important when it comes to like players getting in for their absolute value on the field. Statistical accomplishment is hugely important, and I look a lot at awards as well. Whereas again, championships for me, I wouldn't say no weight, especially if you've been a quarterback to win 6 or 7 championships. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. But I personally wouldn't look, for example, at Alex Hallowax won and be like, well, he's only won one in Division 5. That doesn't matter to me because the thing is, all of the other stats are so impressive. Mm-hmm. One of the key stats I've looked at for a long time for quarterbacks especially is touchdown interception ratio. So when I see guys with 5-1 or higher, that automatically will attract my attention because that's an incredible mark of efficiency. And then if you add to that efficiency stat tremendous counting stats, lots of yardage, high completion percentage, a huge amount of touchdowns, other accomplishments, that adds to that.
And you can't really retroactively go back and fix interceptions you've thrown in the past. So it's like it's marking your efficiency throughout your FPF career.
Throughout time, exactly. So what is... How can I put this? Actually, so are there any other sort of debates you want to draw attention to before we get into some?
So I talked about it a little bit, but let's circle back to it. Is someone who's a shutdown defender and a defender only in the highest divisions, or even has the accolades as just a defender, are they a better candidate than someone who has fewer awards but is a top tier quarterback, receiver, and defender, for example? Yeah. So like how do you weigh those two? So
we've seen shutdown defenders. The case for Teddy Fournette, for example,
Teddy Fournette,
where the numbers didn't really show how talented he was. But for me, having worked for the media for a little bit at that time, already had recognized, it's the way other players talk about him. And what I've seen is literally he's responsible for an entire part of the field being avoided by the quarterback. He had that level of impact on the game. So impact is important.
Yeah, Don Shepard as well. Don Shepard, an absolutely devastating center, some of the best hands in the league ever. But we don't remember him as a quarterback, and we don't remember him as a defender because he wasn't. He was just the best center.
He was very good at that one specific thing that he did.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And one thing I've mentioned, and maybe there's something we can look at for All-Star nominations in the future, or for Hall of Fame and so on and so forth, is I think we need to start denoting snappers on teams, because a lot of times they gain yardage, they have tons of catches, they don't gain a lot of yards because of the way most teams use their snappers. They may not be the red zone guy on a team, depending on body type and so on and so forth, but they might play a huge important role on the team. I think that is one way, maybe not for Hall of Fame, but helping us choose Hall of Fame, choose All-Star snappers, I think would be one way to help us do that. Now, I know teams will change snappers during season, game to game, especially lower divisions. You see teams changing snapper during games, but maybe someone gets a snapper designation at the start of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and over time that'll sort of weigh itself.
Yeah, because I can understand, like, looking at it statistically, a receiver who's averaging 9 yards a catch compared to a center who's averaging 7 yards a catch is very different, right? Like, having a center who's able to consistently pick up that amount is huge compared to a receiver who could just catch a bomb every now and again.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old school fullback, and how important they were in that era of the NFL. Like for us,
is your Larry Sonka jersey around here?
It's at home. It's at home. It's hanging at home. But the fact that they played such an important role, snappers play, and everyone will tell you, sort of, you build your team up the middle, quarterback, snapper, rushers. They play a hugely important role. And again, I think Don Shepard's a really good example of that. Is that a lot like, okay, so he scored a ton just because by virtue of being also giant, but
also way fast than someone that size.
Yeah, well,
be.
he was too fast for his size. He was too big for a lot of guys to cover. Just great timing with Kevin Wyeth, where he would literally turn his head, put his hands out, the ball would hit them, and it was It was not defensible.
Yeah.
And as great as Brian Laurier has been for finance for so many years, that you couldn't compete with that level of familiarity he had playing with Kevin Wyeth in that system, and timing and spacing and all that. All those things didn't necessarily translate. It's like the defender, like the defender conversation. You don't always know that just from looking at the stat sheet. So stats are important, but not necessarily something that really is the only telltale sign. Anything else?
No, just bigger picture.
So the process. There are 3 types of votes. The community gets a vote, although it's not heavily weighted. I think that's important that the community gets a vote, although
it's not,
Division 1 and 2 players seem to not like that.
Well, when you say it's not heavily weighted, like in what sense, right? Like it's just
not
like we're
weighted.
splitting
It's not because there's different weights assigned. Although I don't know if we make those public.
We don't.
That's why I'm trying to change the course.
I think transparency is important. We don't have to share all the information, but I think a level of transparency is important.
It's significant enough that it plays an impact, but not too significant in that you're not going to get a troll vote. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And that being said, I mean, if we think back to when we first started in FPF, we all started at different timelines and everything. I remember walking on the field and, walking by the Division 1 field, as it used to be called, and being like, talking to my teammates and nudging them on the shoulder. I'm like, guys, that's Kevin Wyeth over there, right? The quarterback. And so I'm pretty sure there's other people who are kind of like in our shoes where they'll hear a name or they see stats that come up or read an article and then there's a name and they're walking down the field and they get those names. So we want to make sure that if you've really generated a buzz around yourself and you have this reputation, that also kind of factors into how the community views you in the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, that's kind of definitely it's a factor to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, the community vote, and then we have
Tim, I know that a lot of the Division 1-2 guys especially don't like it. I think it's important because these players play in different divisions. They're involved in our league. Again, because of the fact that they're not heavily weighted, and the fact that they're not as heavily weighted as the other parts anyway. And I think that one thing we did last year is when, for example, a player added all of his relatives to the vote, we removed those votes and did not count them because we want to restrict it to specifically FPF community, so people can't stuff the ballot box. We do actually spend time to make sure the community vote is representative. The next vote is Hall of Famers. Hall of Famers,
which used to be alongside staff, the only 2 who contributed.
Originally, it wasn't even staff. It was staff was Rob Campana and Darren Basmajan, who of course in Peeze vernacular is old Peeze, is first Peeze. So
the agitator, if you will,
the asshole who takes the heat for Rob.
Yeah. Basically, we have BD and AD, before Darren and after Darren.
No, it's before Peeze and during Peeze. Those are the 2 eras. But yeah, so all that to say, the players who were selected into the Hall of Fame have a vote. Do staff members who were in the Hall of Fame, who got elected to the Hall of Fame, they count as Hall of Fame votes, right?
I will reveal this: the Hall of Fame and the staff vote is identical.
No, but that's not the question I asked you.
But that's what I mean. That's how it counts. If you're Hall of Fame, but your staff,
So it doesn't matter 'cause it's the
staff.
same
Yeah, it's the same weight though. We're all pulled together.
Okay, and then the play. And then staff. Thanks for bearing the lead for blowing the lead, Eagle. I almost said something different.
Who is Eagle blowing?
The staff.
Okay.
I'm happy I used lead, a word that starts with L. The thing is,
Lead does start with an L.
there's another word, and it implies something else. So the staff gets a vote as well. That's people like myself, yourself. Terry Tam's been added to staff. For some reason, he's one of the longest.
I wonder why
tenured-
he left.
He's also not on this list. We'll talk about staff nominees too. He's not on the list for staff nominees, even though he's one of our longest tenured employees. It's strange.
I blame Rob Campana. He gets me the list, so
Yeah, I mean, you can check it too, though.
I actually can't because I don't know when people are staff officially or not.
What?
Because even us two, we got burned a year, right?
In Eagles' defense, Eagle and I waited a year.
Yeah, Rob makes people wait a year longer for the Hall of Fame.
I don't know why. I don't know why. It was just decided my first year working for FPF didn't count, which is fine. When it came, and the staff members do have a category to get into the Hall of Fame as well. People working.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in it otherwise.
Yeah, people working in, neither would I. People working in game of the week, writers, scorekeepers, those all fit into one category. And
we've seen a variety of staff inductees, so
Absolutely.
It's not just the media members, and it's not exclusively scorekeepers like we see crossover between, but also a variety.
I was actually I wanted all of the writers to get in before me. That was like a goal. So I was like campaigning hard for Simone. Unfortunately, I got in before him, but still an honor, obviously, to be honored. But we'll talk about the staff nominees later. We also have a category for referees.
That one's not voted on by the community because most of the time, if I give you a referee's name, you're going to be like, who? So,
Yeah, you'll vote for the one person you know.
Yeah.
Or didn't blow a call in your game or something.
Well, there's a high level of bias in there when it comes to referees.
Although, I feel like the one who everyone knows and would vote for anyways, like if we polled the players and who would be deserving this year as an official, like Craig O'Brien would win hands down. So, although I don't have any say in who the official is.
I would never vote for Craig. He's terrible.
As a player or as a ref?
Both.
He's eligible for both.
Mostly because his record against me as a player was like 10-0, so that's why.
Yeah.
Straight bias. Like I said, it's only bias when it comes to referees, which is why we don't allow that vote. Shall we look at? Let's start with. Do you want to start with players or staff? Let's go staff because players are more exciting.
Yeah, let's do that.
So let's start staff. You'll mention each person. We'll put the pictures up, and GM and I will sort of talk about their case. And we'll do the same thing for players. And then we'll wrap up and go home. And hopefully the storm isn't that bad yet.
So in the staff category, we have repeat candidates from last year. Justin Blanchard, Jonathan Louis, Robert White, and Brett Bodkin. Jonathan and Rob are predominantly scorekeepers. Justin has scorekept and worked for the media, both in articles and podcasts. And Brent has also done articles and podcasts. New to this list from this year is Lance Daniel, who is responsible for Games of the Week, obviously, for a lot of filming at Roadshow Finals, the championship finals. And has this year taken over a lot of our Instagram feed and our game recaps and that type of stuff. So definitely all deserving candidates across the board.
So we'll do the chronologically as we see them left to right. So not chronologically at all, but we'll go from left to right as they appear on the screen in front of us. Justin Blanchard being the first one. You and I are not only know Justin as a player, as a staff member, are good friends with Justin Blanchard.
In a lot of ways, Justin is the opposite of us. I don't think he'll get in as a staff member, but he might get in as a player.
Well, again, not if you consider only Division 1 and 2 players. So the thing is with Justin Blanchard, the fact that he's done both scorekeeping, working for the media, he's been on our rules committee, not rules committee, but on disciplinary committee as well. A job nobody wants, by the way.
So it's showing a variety of things that he's been able to do. He's been able to wear a lot of hats, if you will, and do them all effectively.
Yeah. He's done some pretty impressive things when doing the podcast with you. I remember one time specifically watching a podcast from Toronto where you were the host and he was the analyst, and I said, "This is terrible." And being able to switch on a dime on his first season podcast, did a great job writing articles from France. being able to do the research. It was really impressive. That's the case for Justin Blanchard. Next one, Lance Daniel. For me,
very, 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 very polarizing personality, but an absolute innovator in this league, doing things different than have been done before, and whether you like it or not, consistently pushing the envelope.
I didn't like Game of the Week when I first started playing in FPF.
Screw you, Ryan Aridi.
No, I mean, I thought Ryan. I thought everyone who did it before
Why?
did a great job without direction. They did what they thought was expected of them, which looked a lot like game film.
To everyone's credit, each time someone else took on the job, like when it went from Mike Anthony Palazza to Eddie Tarabay, from Eddie Tarabay to Vadim Cherniak, from Vadim to Ryan Aridi, every time someone else took it on, they did it differently.
Yeah, definitely, and made improvements along the way. And it's the whole thing. Stephen Hawking said that he couldn't have discovered what he discovered without standing on the shoulders of giants that came before him. Similar. I never thought I'd reference Stephen Hawking in an FPF podcast, but that's okay. But Lance Daniel kind of understood what we wanted from Game of the Week, being more of a marketable product, something we can show people to sell our league, and the work he's done with FPF Junior, FPF, and from a quick meeting where I had to run out of because I had a game, talking about how we needed to improve our Instagram feed. The job he's done this season has been phenomenal. Jonathan Louis, I'll let you speak more on Scorekeepers, GM, just because anyone who knows me knows I don't have the intellectual capacity for scorekeeping. You have shown some intellectual capacity for scorekeeping, so you can recognize those who have done it better than you.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the scorekeepers in general, and then I'll make a case for John specifically.
Well, let's do John and Rob, because those are the two pictures side by side.
Absolutely. So there's a lot that goes on in a game all at once. And at any given time, you have to register if it's a completion, how many yards was it, who was the recipient, and who made the tackle. And if teams don't have numbers on both sides, or someone's in the way, or someone's talking to you, there's a lot that goes on that you can very easily miss and fall behind. And it takes a lot to scorekeep a game and be able to manage all those things at once. And not only that, but John is certainly something that not a lot of FPF members see, but staff members see behind the scenes, is that like John had been and has been a sort of a personality for Rob, like someone who he trusts to oversee the entire arena, like at that time. So all the other scorekeepers will come to him and they'll get their stuff, but he'll organize and he'll be really the presence for Rob at the field for that day throughout the games. And I think that that's something that, like I said, not a lot of people see, but is very valuable to the league behind the scenes, and why the staff vote is by the staff. Rob White as well, scorekeeper, perennial personality. We've seen him win championships as well. He was a former teammate.
I was going to say these two scorekeepers are actually extremely underrated players as well.
Both have championships.
Yeah. Which I don't weigh heavily.
So yeah, the same argument can be made for Rob White, just someone who's been with the league and seen its evolution and has been that scorekeeper as well. Yeah. Brent Bodkin has done a lot of everything. He's
score cap. He's been writing for longer than I have.
Yeah.
He's been the voice at the finals.
Brent was the Ottawa author, similar to Justin, who wrote about like FPF when he was in France. Like Brent wrote about the Ottawa division
while being in Montreal.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult to do. Brent. So I will say the little anecdote I have about Brent is one of the hardest working, most pliable, and most reliable people we've had at FPF. And what I mean by most pliable is when I started working for the media and Rob entrusted me with handling sort of the direction of the media, we had a vision specifically for what we wanted. And Brett Bodkin was very traditional in his style of writing. And over time, he's become, a really fun read. He brings life to broadcast. And, all the other stuff he's done in terms of scorekeeping just adds to that. But to me, the fact that being able to be a guy who comes in, and here's from a guy who started working after him, and like, man, there's a lot of people. I don't know if you know this, GM. Not everyone likes me, But I can be a difficult personality, and Brent's one of those dudes who, no matter what you throw at him, he takes it as a way to make himself better. Doesn't look at not even criticism, but doesn't take these conversations about like, hey, we want to do this, what do you think? He's someone who uses those opportunities as a way to push himself to get better, and that's something I think I've always appreciated in him, in his work in the media. Is it time for players?
Last piece, I just got informed Justin Blanchard was also on the rules committee this year. So
Okay.
something else that he can
Yeah,
have.
because rules committee keeps being on nights where you and I aren't available for some reason. Although,
More voices is good, though.
even more of a case for Justin being in the Hall of Fame is he got rid of that stupid rule. He helped get rid of that stupid rule where a tipped pass died on the spot where it was tipped when it was caught behind the tip.
Who voted for that one, GM?
Actually, wait, I think you were the one detractor, were you not? Or
Thank you.
Yeah, Jim was the one detractor. I read the minutes. So let's move on to players.
For
I got your
players,
back.
we have 50 players on the list.
So we'll make it quick.
Well,
It's going to be hard to read the screen from there, so I need you, and I'm getting old, so I need you to toss the names to me.
All right. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, they're kind of sort of randomized on the screen. There's
Fine.
some alphabetical order. Thank you, Duke, for putting this together so quickly. I know you've been sick, so love you. I'm going to start top left.
The whole
work
Super
our way
Bowl party
down.
was just people sick or getting sick.
Yeah. Travis Moses, Shane Paquette, Fasha
Well,
Pavic,
let's go one at a time so we can make a quick case. We're literally one sentence each one, Jim.
Okay.
Travis Moses.
One sentence. Okay. Clear progression from the bottom of FPF to the top.
Two-way stud, started absolutely as a defensive shutdown guy, became offensive threat in FPF's highest divisions.
Shane Paquette.
I don't actually know Shane that well because a lot of his accomplishment is pre-Peeze era, so I'll let you speak on it.
Reliable snapper with multiple championships.
Fasha Papic.
Tall, rangy, unguardable at times.
Unguardable is the bit.
Unguardable
Yeah,
is
there
it.
you go.
Tam Villadeth.
One of the original players who made the transition effectively from defender to quarterback, and again has clearly progressed up the divisions.
The guy who took the statement, you can't win as a mobile quarterback and won a Division II championship.
Sean Kennedy.
Sean Kennedy, I've played against him a couple times. Very reliable player. I don't know his case as well as you do, Jim.
I think Sean Kennedy is the closest player. Like he's like a tight end instead of receiver. Like he's the closest thing to like Rob Gronkowski or George
Yeah,
Kittle.
all right, yeah, that's good.
Like he'll if you try and flag him as he's going by, first of all, he's a lot faster than you, and if you miss, you're gonna feel it because you're getting laid out.
He also looks like he walks with the same kind of pain that Gronkowski walks around with.
Maybe.
Phil Cutler.
Phil Cutler, super exciting player, redesigned his game after tearing his ACL. The numbers he's put up is astonishing. I look at everyone. I look at everyone's stat lines without looking at player names first, so as to avoid bias. And it's always impressive to me the numbers he's put up in his career.
Olivier Bourdage.
Olivier Baudage has been
6 championships
and
in
he
Division 1.
and playing on Montreal's finest, having a roster spot on the team that's been the most talented for the longest time.
And who have access to whatever talent they want. And considering he's been a linchpin of that defense, that's saying something.
Mike Piercin.
Mike Pearson, he's completely taken FPF by storm. Probably, at this point, the best snapper in FPF.
Without a doubt. I think also the championship tally for Mike Pearson is incorrect. It may be missing one because I believe in 2006 or 2007 when Wolverines won Division 2, I think he was on that team.
Oh, did not know that.
In that case, I think we only track from 2009 onwards on the site.
So something to bear in mind is that like throughout the league's evolution.
But again, pre-Peeze era.
Yeah, but pre-Peeze era, he played in one of the top divisions, and now he plays in the top division. So
Was he like 8 years old at the time?
I guess.
Benny Goodfriend.
One of the hardest throwers in FPF.
Oh my
history.
God, absolutely.
I've
Snappers
caught balls
too.
from Benny. My God.
Yep. 7 championships. Very effective quarterback. Very effective snapper.
Absolutely.
We have what's his name?
Anthony Como.
Anthony Como.
I can actually read it.
It's because I switched to another screen where it's anyway. It's a long story. Continue. Anthony Como.
Imposing figure, snapper for finest, not for D boys for many years. reliable
Freight train.
Yeah, freight train. Like the guys running your way, you don't want to be there. The Larry Zonka of FPF snipers.
Mike Harrington.
Another Montreal's finest player, dominant receiver. I remember one spring finals where after he had caught 3 touchdowns or something on the way back to the huddle, I think he shouted to the other team, "Make some adjustments."
I remember the first 3 times I saw him. The first 3 times I saw him was just 3 plays where I looked over and he dropped the ball. And I think those might have been the only 3 drops in his career. And I was like, why did everyone talk about this guy? He's not that good. And then I saw a game where he exploded, and I was like, oh no, I was wrong.
That dude.
He's amazing. My bad.
Sean Avram.
No case for him. He shouldn't be on this list.
Sean should be at the top of everyone's list. Sean is
so you're grandstanding for your friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't take GM seriously.
Yeah.
Sean, it's completely biased.
Sean is the FPF OG, was part of the first undefeated Div 1 team, the Young Guns. He's consistently won championships, and if even in a what have you done for me lately
has
league,
won championship yet.
He's won one. And if you think, is Sean best as a receiver, as a quarterback, or a defender? In that most recent championship, he had 2 game-changing interceptions as a defender. So we see a clear progression. We see a variety of skills, and just FPF OG.
The original Simo Dajne, so to speak. Next.
Scott Maranovich.
Scott, lefty.
Yeah, lefty. One of the few players to win 2 championships in a season.
That's true. Insanely fast, insanely quick. Dude who excelled as quarterback, wide receiver as well. Just one of those guys who just excels. Like the guy we're going to talk about next.
I was going to say the same thing.
It's like, you're going to hear a trend because these 2 guys are very similar. But yeah, we'll talk about the other one in a second. But yeah, that's when I think of Scott Morano. It's just a guy who, when he's on the field, no matter which position he's playing, you have to account for.
Rick Humes.
Rich Humes.
Why did I say Rick?
Rickard Humes.
Richard.
Rick Humes.
Scott Morano X 2.0.
But we're honoring you by posting you as a candidate
name.
for Hall of Fame, but we're going to butcher your name. The dude, literally similar case for Scott Moranowitz. He got hurt last year.
Also, someone who has changed their game after.
And I was going to say, had to absolutely redefine his game, similar to Jay Cutler. And I've been
Phil Cutler too.
We're good at this.
My God, this is a tough show. Next,
Patrick Saint-Amand.
So one of this should be your example of someone who only plays with their friends and might not get the accolades that they deserve because of it, because he carries a team at times. You absolutely have to account for him, and unless you've watched Lazoo, Voodoo, those,
he's a legitimate candidate for a prototypical Division 5 player being in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
because he's a guy who can compete at a higher level, fast, huge, great hands, runs every route in the route tree, amazing accomplishments, and just wants to play with his friends. I know because I've tried to pry him away for seasons.
Matt Bond.
Shut down Division 1 defender.
Yeah, and a guy who's improved as a receiver over time at the highest divisions as well.
Marco Bertoldi.
Marco Bertoldi, to me, was the first memory I have of him is playing against Bearskins in Division 3 and looking at him and saying, well, that's not the guy we got to worry about. And then him scoring, I want to say 3 touchdowns against that game. And I was like, I was wrong.
So in a pre-Peeze era, my first memory of Marco Bertoldi
it didn't happen.
Is he old enough to drive? So he's been in that league, and he has excelled from a young age from the Incredibles, and we've seen clear progression as well. We've seen him get better and better. So this is someone who is elite route running, amazing hands without gloves, and is an absolute threat everywhere on the field.
So because he's just too lazy to get himself gloves, gets himself extra attention.
Marc-Antoine Vien.
Cannonball. Talking about dudes who catch a ball and you don't want to be in their way. Just plays the game with veracity is the way I would.
So arguments about yardage for snappers. He should be your prime counter example, because I think he has more catches for 1 or 2 yards that were probably each one of them 4th down.
I was gonna say if there was a stat for first downs in FPF,
it will be Marc-Antoine Vien.
Yeah, he would probably hold the record.
Kyle Lebowski.
Someone who doesn't talk a lot. Is easy to not, because he's not flashy. You don't notice him on the field until you notice him. He's an absolutely underrated defender, and still, I say he's underrated, and he still has the numbers to back it up.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but look up his interceptions to pick six ratio. It's nonsense.
Yeah,
nonsense.
Justin McLean, we talked about it earlier a little bit.
Yeah, we can move on, I guess, because we made the case. Eight
Vince
individual awards in 10
Vince
seasons.
Nardone's entire offense.
Yeah.
Jordan McLaren.
Oh, the best jump ball receiver in FBF.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite memory is on a 2-point convert, watching him go up, catch it with one hand, boop the defender on the head with the ball on the way down for the catch.
The thing like, if you want to talk about guys who have a presence, who change the game just by being on the field on both sides of the ball, that's Jordan McLaren.
Justin Lerner.
I think in the 10 seasons that he's been in this league, Justin has kind of taken it by storm in the amount of individual awards, championships, and all-star nominations.
And similar to what we made the case for Pat Saint-Amand, he's a guy who just until he recently started playing with Sion.
Only recently, yeah.
He just wanted to play with his brother and his friends, and I'm not going to hold that against him. The dude is a phenomenal athlete. He is a highlight reel machine.
The only double nomination, Justin Blanchard.
Well, we skipped over someone.
Jordan
Oh,
Allard.
yeah,
I
we'll
want
come
to
back
Jordan
to him.
Allard.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's do Jordan Allard first.
Yeah.
Jordan Allard first, then.
Jordan Allard first.
He's shown he excels at a variety of things. Great defender, great receiver.
And his level of improvement in short periods of time at
Yes,
each position
absolutely.
is crazy. It's crazy.
Especially as well, he's moved up from
It's-
Division 6 to Division 4A as a quarterback.
Quick side topic. The thing I find weird about voting in FPF is sometimes you're voting for guys who absolutely have accolades, absolutely look the part and have the talent to be Hall of Famers, and you're like, but they're not even there yet. They're like we haven't even seen how good he's gonna be, and he's already a candidate for Hall of Fame.
Now let's do Justin Blanchard.
Kind of overrated. No, he's very good, insanely fast.
Great teammate.
A guy who makes everyone around him better. One of the best defensive play callers in FPF.
John Laristis.
My case,
Swiss Army knife.
yeah. Well, look, not a lot of guys have that many catches, that many sacks, and he's played a lot of seasons, but he's also played some quarterback. He's not only played rusher; he's played DB on a lot of teams as well. He's a guy who, he has a reputation for being a loudmouth. I've played with him as a teammate, and I could be very frustrating to play with. And one of the best teammates I've ever played with.
I think there's something to be said as well in that some people are system receivers, and I think John is like the complete opposite of that, and that you can kind of plug and play him in any system.
He's also missing a Receiver of the Year award on the site. He won one with Checkmate.
Jesse Dupuis.
I think for a while he had an undefeated in the finals, and there was just a winning streak.
They had a 24-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Or something.
If we had a most improved player, Jesse Dupuis would have won it 4 years in a row, despite having won it the year before. That's how good he is and how quickly he improved.
And I think that he quashed a lot of his critics who said that he liked to be a big fish in a small pond when he started playing with.
Oh, and I was one of those critics, and then I was wrong. And I'm happy to say I was wrong because former teammate, and I know him personally, great dude.
Jeff Rosenblatt.
Another player who has grown tremendously during their time in this league. And then let's think about do we take the fact that he plays in 35 plus and his accolades and his stats that he puts up there? I
35
think
plus is
it's
part an FPF
yeah,
division.
absolutely.
And again, this is a museum of our league on the whole.
He's
And
also playing with Keeper Lock in Div 3 this year, so it's not only 35 plus
Yeah.
anymore, right? He's
Yeah.
still competing at a high level.
And he beat the finest in the fall season.
Jeremy Anderson.
One of the Swiss Army knives, a guy who,
Yeah.
who you don't expect to be that quick. A guy who again has
reads the field tremendously.
yeah, and he has a reputation for being a hothead and so on. But I've played with him, and again, tremendous teammate, made everyone around him better.
Jason Prince.
So we're talking about reputations now. But seriously, though, Jason Prince I think he might be one of the players on here with the most amount of championships, or at least it's close. He used to be one of FPF's premier rushers as well before making the transition away from that. And just the variety of teams that he's played on and impacted is his case.
Yeah, I know him primarily as a defender and playing in a variety of schemes, variety of different coverages, and always did so well. Similar to the case you made for John Lewis on offense, that's the case for Jason Prince on defense.
Brian La Riviere, we kind of mentioned him earlier a little bit.
Yeah,
We'll go
effectiveness as a center on the finest, but also has championships with Craig O'Brien and the Water Buffaloes previous to that.
And not to mention replacing sort of an FPF legend in Don Shepard and doing so, stepping into those shoes with no problem.
Julien Paiement.
So a lot of rushers,
Devastating.
Literally just that, just disrupting as a rusher.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing with Julien is for a long time. People say it's easy to put up stats as a rusher in lower divisions because there's more mobile quarterbacks. He's done it in every division at all times. It's nonsense. The guy is ridiculous.
One thing I will add here, one of the very few people who have won 3 championships in the same season.
I think the only.
I think there's one other person, maybe.
Did Rushdie ever do that?
Yeah.
I think Rushdie made finals on 3 teams.
He did make 3 in a row.
But I think someone else did win 3, but Julien did it in a single day because now we started splitting them across 2 days. So he's actually done them all in the same day, basically back-to-back games almost.
And we tried to make him not do it. We put his 3 games the same day. So
yeah. JD Chevalier.
JD is a guy whose numbers don't even showcase how good he is.
Yeah.
He hasn't played as many games as a lot of other guys in this league, but when you see him on the field, his talent is tremendous.
I'm looking at the entire page of players right now, and I'm trying to think of someone who is able to make it look as effortless as JD does. I don't think there's any other player.
The next guy. So it's again we're the back-to-back guys.
Yeah, who look like they're putting such little effort in and can do so much, leading us to
Jamie Ojea.
Yeah,
Jamie Ojea. When he's running, it looks like he's like gliding on water.
So true. That's a very good description.
It doesn't even look like he's fast, except oh my god, is he fast?
Yeah, and at times like you just look and he's just kind of chilling in the corner, looking kind of disheveled. And then there he's taking it back for 6.
Yeah.
Jamal Gittins.
The first time I saw Jamal Gittins, the first time I was introduced to him was in that Rogues game where he went up and made that filthy one-hand catch. And hasn't stopped since then. Jamal Gittins is just fine. He's very, very good on defense, but is one of the best receivers I've ever seen play in FPF.
Isaiah Allard.
Ready to ruin your day at rusher.
Your day.
Yeah, I don't think there is any rusher who has or will ever come close to the amount of interceptions at the rusher position that Isaiah has. It's crazy.
Gordon Hogan.
Someone who also cared very little but made it look effortless.
But see, his effortlessness actually is because he just seemed to really not care.
Yeah. So not an FPF story, but in an outdoor touch league, we had made the finals, and Gordon showed up hungover, without cleats, and kicked the opening kickoff in his bare feet for a safety, for a touchback.
The safety would have been particularly impressive.
No, but yeah, for a touchback, and it was just
he would have line drive it off a guy's face out of the end zone.
Fred Vien.
Every argument you have for Joey Taylor makes
up for league building and mentorship.
Yeah, but you're not right in that. What
do you mean I'm not right?
He mentors you, but it's
but not just me. I'm saying
the Allard brothers and
and again, I've worked and written for lower divisions long enough to know the reach he's had. A guy will legit sit and talk to you for hours about FPF if you even engage him.
So statistically better than Joey.
The most accurate passer in FPF.
The most accurate passer in
72.7% career completion rate.
Yeah. And although
career completion rate, not season. Career. Every single year he's averaging 73% completion.
That's ridiculous. And it's not even his most effective position. If you've seen him play receiver, it's crazy. Very difficult to guard.
He was just passing because he was their best option. Mm-hmm. And then it turned out he was really good.
The next person, I'm not really sure why he's on the list because he's here in the room with us.
I am Francois Delaurier.
Yeah.
I am Francois Delaurier. Francois is awesome. He's been a ref. He's played in co-ed. He's just
35 plus.
His involvement in FPF is amazing.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people who care about FPF the way Francois Delaurier does.
And who's just one of the best teammates, a great football mind as well, and a motivator, and just absolutely. If you want a Hall of Fame to be representative of its players, Francois is the face of that.
Yeah.
Dylan Taylor.
Just effortless at quarterback. He just kind of like flicks it and it goes there with no. And it's reasons like that. Like watching Dylan throw a football is like, yeah, I'll never be able to do that ever.
Everything he does is effortless. Is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Even at receiver, even on defense, just a really smart, calculating player, and that's why he's able to make it look so effortless.
Corey Greenway.
Corey Greenway's not a guy people know very well. I will say, if you play him in Words with Friends, he will devastate you. I've beat everyone I play against. I cannot beat Corey Greenway. One of the smartest dudes I know, football and outside of football.
Incredible range as a defender. Side to side, I think that he's like your prototypical like Bobby Wagner type linebacker. Like he covers the entire field, will not miss a tackle, and just like shuts down everything in his area.
In the first FPF Cup, there was a play where he caught a ball in a short hook, and I decided I'm not going to be able to flag him. I'm going to knock him down. No, knock him down. I went over him to play the ball. I'm a big dude now. I was a bigger dude then. He tossed me aside like I didn't exist, and then took it upfield for a touchdown. It was insane.
Danny Demore.
You cannot explain the greatness that is Danny.
The greatest. If there was when someone's great at something, so a master, so to speak. I almost said these two words together. He's just great at baiting people, great at baiting quarterbacks. I almost put those words too. That's why I started instantly laughing. But yeah, otherwise you can't describe what Danny Demore is.
Would you say he's an expert baiter?
He's an expert baiter. He excels at so many things.
Yeah, especially because he doesn't even look like a football player. He looks like a French painter. Someone said he looks like a French painter who crapped their pants, so he's just kind of waddling, but he's always there.
Yeah.
And he'll always make it to the ball before your receiver does, and it's like he knows what your quarterback is going to do before they do it.
Chris Millard.
Another devastating rusher. Another player who is absolutely
everything.
Yeah.
Phenom.
I saw him once like go up for a jump ball. Like if you're standing, like he caught it over your head, but like it was at his waist.
Mm-hmm.
So he went up for a pass higher than, I don't know, and had to reach down for it at the defender's head.
Yeah. So. I remember, you'll remember this story, Jim, when we put together a staff team for the charity tournament, and Vince Stardone was very intent on winning, and I was very intent on having a good time. And I just kept saying, whenever Vince was like, guys, we gotta really go out and get this. I was like, yeah, but like, it doesn't matter. And then like, I was really aggravated, and he's like, no, like, we're gonna bring this guy, Chris. And I was like, okay, but like, we don't need him because again, we don't really care.
We all know the league pretty well.
And so I remember messaging you and saying, so this guy Chris, like, is he a douchebag? Is he gonna ruin the team? Is he gonna make this not fun? And you're like, nope, opposite. And you were entirely right. He is just always smiling, always having a good time. One of the just most chill dudes out there. And that level of chill should never be that level of dominating.
Yeah, one of my favorite Chris Millard stories to tell is I had the fortune of playing with him in an outdoor tournament years before he started playing in FPF. And then he wrote on the FPF walls as a free agent saying, hey guys, looking for a team. And I saw it like maybe 5 minutes after it was posted, and I messaged him right away. I said, I have a spot for you. You can play both ways all game. You'll never sit. Like, we'll take care of you. Come on. Just delete your post off the wall, please. I said, you have a spot. Don't worry about it. And we have a quarterback who will love to throw to you. Just take your post off the wall.
Brandon Aylward.
A clear progression. Someone who was in Joey's system as well, and we've seen him expand his role. Great as a quarterback. Great as a receiver.
Yeah, he's his top speed is really impressive. He's a guy who people don't take seriously until they see it. Guys are waiting for him deep, and he still gets by them. It's really very impressive.
Anthony Van Dram.
Again, kind of does everything well, but to me, the way he just every route he runs looks physical. Mm-hmm. He just will always get separation, and when he doesn't, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he runs his routes angry. Plus, time cup.
Nice.
Andrew Langbert.
Most frustrating player I've ever played against. He learn when you're playing against him as a quarterback, he learns your playbook immensely quickly. His recall is insane. and his adjustments are out of this world.
And if you look at someone like from where they started and how have they progressed and how do they compare to their peers, and Andrew is someone who is another one of those guys who's not necessarily a higher division name, but absolutely deserves to be on this list.
Corey Pecker.
The first time I saw Corey Pecker throw a ball, I said, wow, this guy can't be good.
Yeah.
And as much as I've been wrong about a lot of the guys on this list, I've never been more wrong than Corey Pecker. We've talked about players' intelligence, and I don't even think there's anybody on this list who rivals Corey Pecker's. What he's been able to do without having the physical skill set and training. He wasn't a guy who was a football player. He was a guy who was a hockey player. And without sort of having, let's say, the background of, let's say, a guy like Dan Lazara. Or the guy with the experience of Kevin Wyeth and what he had done in, he was Kevin Wyeth was a talented tackle football player before taking over flag. Corey Pecker has maximized his skill set. And like you say that a lot of times about guys in Div 3, you don't say that about guys in Div 1 often.
Yeah. But even during his time in Division 3, I remember him carrying teams. Like he carried his team.
Oh, his teams were not good enough for his ability in Division 3, and they were still competitive in every game and every season.
Alex Hollowak.
The most improved player in the history of FPF, start to finish.
Yes, absolutely.
There, for a long time, there wasn't anybody who truly excited me when I watched FPF. Alex Hollowak ignited something in me where I was like, I've never seen a guy play this fast and just always attack. Like he acts like he drives like Dom Toretto. He acts like Nicolas Cage. He is everything I want in everything. That's it. That's my case for Alex Holloway.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't argue that.
If you love Dom Toretto and if you like Nicolas Cage, and if you know me, these are compliments. Alex Holloway is just the most fun there is on an FPF field. There's not a more aggressive. He has the
pros of like Kelsey Grammer.
Yes, exactly.
Dean Demetriou.
Very versatile player, has played in a variety of systems and roles. He was one of, alongside Norman Weeks, you can see in his, he's wearing the Warriors jersey, but on the Warriors, he was one of the first players to be like the 2-point conversion halfback. And at that time, not a lot of teams knew what to do with that. And I think that he is probably the most 2 points conversions thrown in FPF.
The amount of times I've been on a podcast and said, well, they lost, but Dean Demetriou wasn't there, and it's not the same team. I've said it this season. I've said it my first season working on the podcast. I said it every season in between. He impacts the team he's on almost like no other player.
Anthony James, Gomez. We still haven't clarified.
I meant to ask him today how to pronounce his name, and I forgot. Even though I spoke to him today, he doesn't live there anymore.
Okay.
He doesn't live above our high rise anymore.
Okay.
The rent was too astronomical. AJ, it's so weird for me because I keep calling him the next best receiver in FPF, and he's eligible for Hall of Fame because he already is the next best receiver. Like whether or not he's the best, to me, I saw him as the guy who was going to be there, and you can easily make the case that he is the best right now.
Also the most OCs on this list.
That's true. Listen, he plays with fire, and he started playing young, and that's usually when you get your OCs.
Mm-hmm. Craig O'Brien.
Craig O'Brien has never been young.
Yeah, Craig is absolutely an old soul, but like to go with that is he has all the intelligence and like he sees the field and he sees the routes and he's just phenomenal. Deserves to be inducted as a referee. Deserves to be inducted as a quarterback.
I've told this story on Calling the Audible before, but because every podcast is someone's first podcast, I'll tell it quickly here. We lined up with Moose against a team that was called Past Our Prime. They were called Past Our Prime for a reason. They're all old. On our team was a bunch of guys with FPF cred, a quarterback with, as Fred Morris said, with a 7-to-1 touchdown, career 7-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And
CIS players.
Sorry?
CIS players.
Not only CIS players. Bruno Labelle, who is now a tight end at Cincinnati, and Felix Laflamme, who was All Canada and CIS at the time.
And
we got-
Morissette's also an offensive coordinator now. So we also
well, no, he's a
bring-
head coach at
Head coach,
Montmorency. But don't hold that against him. Unfortunately, Montmorency's not been the return to greatness has not yet happened. But Craig took a team of guys who didn't have the speed that we had, didn't have the youth that we had, and tore us to shreds. And that was the first of about 10 times where he would do that. And like, I got to a point where I couldn't talk to my now wife on game days when I was going to play against them because I felt like I was going to an execution. I felt I was going to a trial, I was going to lose. And
you just take that out on whoever's
exactly. And so, Craig O'Brien, I got married to a woman I love despite your best efforts.
And those are our 50 candidates
That's a
for
weird
the Hall
way
of
to
Fame.
end
Yeah.
our list.
So for anyone in our community or Hall of Fame members or staff members that want to actually vote, to do so, go inside GM's article. There is a link. We'll also be posting it on our Facebook group, and I think it'll go out in our weekly email to captains as well. So there is a link in there which will give you a form which you can fill in. So basically all you need to do is enter in your name. You specify if you played an FPF before, just so we can see if you're an actual player or if it's more of like a fan vote, let's call it, to kind of see the differentiating factors there. We have a link to the spreadsheet. I'll show you that in a second. And then you have a list of all 50 candidates. You get 10 votes from 10 to 1. Notice the 1, you are going to have to scroll. I can't make the form any bigger. So literally you have to use this and move over by 1. And then at the bottom, you also have the ability of selecting one of those staff members we talked about earlier. Once you're done that, you go ahead and submit it, and that'll process your vote for this particular voting. You can only vote for each player once, and you can only vote for each category once, so you can't vote 2 10s. So 110, 19, 18, etc. If you do vote for the multiple people twice, we'll remove the lowest one. If you vote for the same number twice, we're going to remove the vote entirely. So just kind of let you know how that works behind the scenes.
And you don't have to fill out all 10, right?
Exactly. You don't have to vote for all 10. You can only vote one person for 10, and that's your vote.
So are we inducting a specific amount of players, or is it players that a certain percentage of vote?
GM, you want to tackle this?
Yeah. So we've seen that right now, whether it's a certain amount or a certain percentage, it's kind of coming up to the same thing. So we're going to try again with the 6. If you can be inducted with 6% of the vote, which the trends of the past 3 seasons have ended up being the top 5 players anyways.
Yeah.
So a little bit different this time around, but that still hits our usual targeted trend. We still want to make it exclusive, so we wanted to make sure it's still a lot. But that being said, people felt like 5 people every year was a large number of people getting in. So this way, if the community doesn't agree, then there actually is kind of a way of saying there's no consensus, and therefore a limited pool of people should be inducted.
Eagle.
Yes.
So I know I should know this. I know it's my responsibility. I know this. And because you manage every aspect of my life, I figure it's best that I go to you because I either don't remember or we didn't have this conversation. How will the winners be announced?
So we are going...
First of all, do we have this conversation?
We have had this conversation.
Oh, nice. I completely forgot.
So the
Ask him if
voting...
we had it this year.
Yeah. The voting begins now, effectively. So this is live. You can go ahead and submit it. Just before we tackle this topic, there is, I mentioned, a corresponding document which comes together with both the accolades for every player. So you can see, you don't have to go profile by profile. We did it for you. You can see the number of championships, playoff, MVPs, all-star selections, all the awards. It's all here. And then we also have a categorization of all their statistics as well. So if you want to go ahead and see how many receiving yards a player has, they're all here. You can go ahead and filter off of the tabs and get the information. So you have all the stuff, including the OC count. So like right there, we can catch it. So this is all available for you to help make your decision as you start voting. So going back to the original question, voting begins immediately. Voting will end Sunday night at 11:59:59. So like basically midnight.
Sunday.
Yeah. And then throughout all of next week, we'll be announcing the inductees. So we'll be doing it progressively. Usually it comes with a little blurb about their career, pretty much what we did now, but in a written up version. They get inducted.
Are we doing the podcast version of that as well?
Maybe. That's the part we
You know what? Maybe.
Yeah, that's the one we haven't figured out exactly yet. We tried it for a couple of years. It worked okay, but it's also like a lot of heavy lifting to prep and everything. So we'll see exactly how it's going to work out.
Well, Eagle, I need you to figure that out and let me know. Also, please put in my agenda to vote by Sunday, 11:59:59. For those of you without an Eagle, please make sure to do so before Sunday, 11:59:59.
To clarify,
PM.
Sunday, February 9th, 11:59:59 p.m.
That's this
Eastern
Sunday.
time.
Sunday. By then, the XFL games will have all played out, so you have no excuse. Make sure your ballot is filled in. I have been Peeze. You have been
I still
GM.
am GM.
You've been Eagle. And thank you all for letting me be myself.